I'm Rebekah Reysen, and I'm here with Jeremy Roberts, and we'd like to welcome you to the ChitChat. We also have a great guest here today named Sarah Sapp. Let me tell you about Sarah. It's pretty simple. Take equal parts strategic enrollment management and innovative integrated marketing communications experience. Add a love of research, expertise in media writing, and passion for teaching and learning. The result is a higher education marketing professional with 17 years of experience who is confident she can take on the world. Sarah serves as Manager of Marketing and Communications for the School of Applied Sciences and Adjunct Assistant Instructional Professor of Integrated Marketing Communications in the School of Journalism and New Media. With more than 50 statewide, regional, and national awards for her work in higher education, public relations, and marketing from the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations, the College Public Relations Association of Mississippi, and the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, Sarah currently serves as co-chair of the university's Marketing Affinity Group and holds a position on the University-wide Communications Council and Network. Good to see you, Sarah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah, so glad that you're here with us today. So, Sarah, how did you get started in academics?
Well, I got started in academics when I graduated Ole Miss in 2003. My first job offer was at the Mississippi School for the Arts down in Brookhaven, Mississippi. I served primarily as coordinator. I drove the whole state of Mississippi to recruit people to this public residential high school for students who were gifted and talented in the arts. I fell in love with marketing and PR in the field of education. My husband is from the area of Oxford, and so we moved back to the Oxford area where I found a job as an admissions counselor at the university, which, by the way, is the most fun job. So it's one of those kinds of jobs that as you work your way through the profession and you're in more of a leadership role, you look back on those days as an admissions counselor and you think, that was the most fun I ever had. It's just a joy to get to work with students one-on-one through their recruiting process, getting to meet all kinds of people and travel. But I worked my way up through admissions. I did their event planning, their special event planning, their telecounseling program, and eventually became the assistant director for communications for undergraduate admissions. And so I was working with prospective students very closely, and all of they would flow through inquiry to enrolled students. I got my master's in journalism while I was working as in admissions, and so while I was responsible for the print communications and digital communications marketing, I wanted to use my new knowledge or my broader knowledge, professional knowledge so once I completed my master's in journalism, I was looking for opportunities to take on a leadership role in a communications capacity. And so I had the opportunity to work as the director of communications in the Northwest Mississippi Community College system, where I fell in love with every part of the community college system. I got to do everything from producing commercials, both radio and television commercials, do all of the public relations and news for the college, internal and external communications, all of design and marketing. I mean, we ran a full integrated marketing communications shop right there. And so it gave me just a breadth of opportunities to really understand higher education marketing from a very top institutional level. I also was able to serve as spokesperson for the school. But life changes. We sometimes need a break to be closer to home. The commute was killing me. So, and I knew I wanted to come back and get my EDD. I knew I wanted an advanced degree in higher education so that I could be a better leader. I would like to stay with the University of Mississippi, and I want to bring more leadership. And I knew that that advanced program would help. But I really wanted to work at Ole Miss while I was doing that. So I found this job as the manager of marketing and communications. I also happened to meet a fellow communicator who said, hey, you do all of this stuff, and with your background, you really should be teaching. And so I interviewed for an adjunct position in IMC, getting to teach students how to write public relations news releases, and then how to do all sorts of different kinds of persuasive writing. So that's my journey. That's how I ended up back here at Ole Miss, and had just so many opportunities along the way.
And, you know, marketing and communications is such a big part of your background. Define Sarah with marketing and communications. Tell us more about that.
When I think about my work history, there is such a parallel to the idea of integrated marketing communications. Because when I think about all of the different ways that I have been able to reach audiences through all of these different work experiences, it reminds me of what I teach my students. The idea of IMC, or integrated marketing communications, is all about. It's a mix of that direct person-to-person sale, the relationship building with the people. It's news and public relations. It's advertising. It's social media. It's direct mail. It's websites. It's all, there's so many elements to what we describe as the IMC mix. And what I just think is so interesting is that through my just work experience, I've literally gotten to have those practical experiences in every single thing that I teach my students how to do. And so I feel very lucky that my work experience is something that I can lend to my students. So that's kind of how I am with marketing and communications.
So the School of Applied Sciences is growing leaps and bounds every year. I know I graduated with a degree in hospitality management from the University of Mississippi, which is under Applied Sciences. And it's just the news and the information that's coming out of that school with the research, the faculty and staff accomplishments, the student accomplishments, all of that stuff has just been amazing. So how do you, overseeing all of those areas with the different departments, all the students, and then all the different research that's coming together, what does that look like for you? If you could give us an example of a project or something that you actually have gone through from beginning to end, so we can see kind of how you work with everybody in the school.
Yeah. Well, I would say it really starts with the relationship building with your faculty and getting to really understand their research expertise and how that applies to the greater context at a statewide and national level. And so I really try to stay very informed on service projects and hands-on learning opportunities that our students are having, how they're making a difference in communities. And then in our faculty research, how is that research related to things that are a part of a national conversation or a statewide conversation? And so I really try to build campaigns around it or into a greater narrative. And so I work with departments on an individual level. Faculty reach out to me with When you have that relationship, they'll reach out to me and they'll say, this student is doing amazing things. We've got to write a story about her or him. Or, hey, I'm not here to brag, but I won this amazing award because I'm changing the world. And I'm like, yeah, let's write a story about that. Let's do some social around that. And then all of the departments have individual projects and initiatives, events, just different things that they might need to promote or announce in new programs. And so I'm really intimately working with them on that sort of micro level work. But from a dean's office, which is, I report to Dean Peter Grandjean, we're really looking at a macro level of the brand of the School of Applied Sciences. And where do we fit in a broader university narrative? And what impact are, where are the areas we want to impact in terms of messaging? And then as he is developing new programs, shaping the school, I'm developing communications to make sure that those programs are front and center in our strategy. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's good, and then it's fun. And I will say it is all about the relationships that you build and the trust that you build with your faculty and with your students. And when you really honor them and come at communications from a service perspective, I think people are very receptive to that. When you acknowledge the significance of what they are doing to change the world. And you tell them that personally in emails, you tell them, through writing stories about them and providing that greater context in your story writing. It really does start to help build those relationships.
So relationship building, very key, very fundamental. And in terms of, campaigning and marketing strategies, I've heard about the Changemakers. What is this campaign about? How did it start? How has it grown? Tell us about that process.
So I have a really hard time not saying the hashtag Changemakers, because that's really where it kind of came from. But the idea was really sparked from research that the Pew Center and lots of there's extant literature on Generation Z. And some of the things that come out when you're looking at the literature on Gen Z, which is the traditional freshman entering class. So when you look at them, they hold more progressive views on social issues, and they're more racially and ethnically diverse. 45% of Gen Z wants to work for a company that makes a positive difference in the world. And so all of this research about Gen Z just resonated so perfect mission and vision of our school, improving the lives, the health outcomes, the health and wellness of individuals and communities around our state and nation and our world. And so when I started to see the real parallels between this generation and the very mission of what we do in applied sciences, where human service and science, or human science and service, really intersect, I started to see they are agents of change. Our students are trained in everything from the way that foundational changes, our social workers who are looking at ways to relieve suffering in individuals and communities. When I look at, our criminal justice program and thinking about restorative justice, these are some of the foundational things that run society. But at an individual level, we're also improving that wellness and the individual health outcomes of people at an individual level through exercise science and dietetics and nutrition. So we're literally changing both society and the individual person through health and wellness. And so there really is no part of applied sciences that is not making change, making positive change in the world through evidence-based practice. And so that's when I started really thinking, what's a good way to describe our students? Well, they're change makers. You know, you hear agent of change a lot, but I thought change maker, we could address them as that. You know, that's the way we would refer to our students. And so we started calling them that. We started using that terminology in our social media posts and in promotional materials. And it's starting to become a part of the vernacular of our faculty and slowly our students. So it's being shared on social media, that hashtag #Changemaker, and it's giving the School of Applied Sciences just a real identity and a brand within the greater narrative of the university.
So talking about the brand of Applied Sciences, how did you and Dean Grandjean come up with the direction you wanted to go in? Because him being new to campus, you being new in the position, what did that conversation look like as, you know, we want to be on the same level as the other schools. So here's something that we can do. So could you walk us through that process?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think it started when they created this position in the first place because they knew that we really had to have somebody to direct the branding of this school to bring more students in. And so his predecessor, Dr. Teresa Carruthers, she was our interim dean for a while. She's the one that hired me, and she knew that I had that breadth of background that could really help position the school and bring positive attention to it. But when Dean Grandjean came into our leadership, we were just completely in sync on the importance of investing time and money wisely into growing brand awareness for our school, into growing relationships with our students and with our alumni, with our stakeholders. And he is one that understands that you often have to spend money to make money. And so to grow our he doesn't care about the money, he cares about having the funds to grow our programs and reinvest into our departments. And so we just had a very similar ideological view of the importance of applied sciences and the things we wanted to capitalize on. He and I are both huge advocates in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is the center of what we talk about in leadership meetings. And so the message of you belong in applied sciences, that's another thing that you will see in all of our communication to students, is really just telling you that not only can you find a place to major in where you can make a difference in the world, we welcome you. You belong in applied sciences. And so I think just ideologically, we were very much on the same page and showing student impact. What are our graduates doing? What are our faculty doing that impact the greater good? He was the first of anybody to adopt that hashtag #Changemakers. He will put it in presentations. He will, no matter, I mean, he's going to drop that in every time he's talking. So that was just something we just really aligned with.
Wow, so it sounds like, yes, you're busy advocating, doing all kinds of really important work at the university. And I know students are such a huge part of this process, and you mentioned belonging. Do you have any advice for students who are, majoring in marketing or communications, or just students in general?
Yes, I think specifically for marketing and well, I'll say generally, in a very general sense, and we tell our students this in applied sciences all of the time, practical experience that you can gain in college, you just have to take advantage of every opportunity that's put in front of you. So in joining student organizations, joining advocacy groups, being a voice for people who don't have a voice, being an advocate, and getting involved in every avenue that you can, to get to meet as many different people from different backgrounds to get a better global understanding. That's my broader advice, because those things, when you understand more cultures, more backgrounds, you're going to be a more effective communicator. You're going to be a more effective marketer, because you will be able to speak to a target market in a way that resonates with them. But when students are in marketing and communications, we just want that any type of experience. So writing for the Daily Mississippian, doing, being an anchor on Newswatch, or even helping with production on the back end, designing advertising for hottitoddy.com, and there are things built in, writing stories for the DM, lots of experience that students can just get. And then exercising the skills that you're learning along the way in the organizations that you're passionate about. So if you are, in an organization, take on the role of the PR. Say if there's a PR role in your organization, take it on. Be the person who can write news releases for your organization and design direct mail or postcards or posters. Help message for the people in organizations that are close to you. Because ultimately, I always tell my students, you have to find an organization that resonates with your personal values. Because if it doesn't, and you're just in it because you need a job, while we all sometimes have to take jobs to, have a job, I think I encourage them toward an ultimate career goal of finding an institution or an organization that just really resonates with who they are. And then everything you ever do will be so much fun. And that's how I feel about working in the School of Applied Sciences. That's how I feel about teaching, because I'm just given the freedom to do what I do best in an institution whose values just completely align with mine.
Yeah, that definitely speaks volumes to let students, because that's one thing that we do with our students. A lot of them come to us and they may not be happy with their major. So we want to talk about, let's talk to some people about your major. Let's talk to some people about a new major.
Right.
So doing those kind of things to make sure that students are happy with what they go into and happy with what they're doing is definitely important, especially for all of us at a university level.
Absolutely.
You working with them, getting them to think about the end goal. We're working with them to get them back on track. So
right.
Making sure that they're good with what they're doing is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So speaking of students, what we want to do is we have a lightning round for you.
Okay.
We're going to go back to when you were a student.
Okay.
So, the first question is, let's go back to Sarah's freshman year.
Okay.
What was Sarah like as a student in her freshman year?
I was a band nerd.
Okay.
I had just graduated from the Mississippi School for Math and Science, which was the most difficult, rigorous academic curriculum. And when I came to Ole Miss my freshman year, my goal was to just do well in my classes, get the A's, but ultimately have a really, good time where I wasn't having to study 24 hours a day. And so I just took my general ed classes that I needed toward my business degree. And I joined the band, and my sister was at Ole Miss at the time in graduate school, or no, I guess she was a senior. So we were both in the band together and just enjoyed myself. You know, I really, I joined some other student organizations, Angel Flight Silver Wings, which was a support for the Air Force ROTC, because my dad is a veteran. And just had a nice time, like made a little bit of difference where I could. But ultimately, I just spent a lot of time with my sister and a lot of my band friends. And I wish that I could lie and say that I studied every single night, but they were freshman level classes, and I had just left a crazy difficult curriculum. So I, probably just took the easy way out just till I was a freshman. As I got further into my integrated, well, I guess at the time it was called marketing communications degree, and it was out of the business school at the time. As I got further into that degree program in my junior and senior year, like I did get way more serious about advertising and ways that I could get involved in American Advertising Federation and stuff like that.
Well, the freshman year is just, I remember freshman year being very overwhelmed. There were so many positive experiences, but it makes sense why there's so many different things to try to calibrate and adjust for. And so class, I know that's super important, but a lot of times students are struggling with just trying to, figure out, and especially if you're in the band, that takes up a lot of time. So just balancing everything can be just.
But it also gives you a family. I mean, that was the, when you're in a new place, that's another thing I always tell students is just find some like-minded people. And band nerds are, we unite through music and for me through flag. But yeah.
And it's such great memories too, thinking back to all that. And in terms of the process, I always love asking this question of our guests, and it'll happen that we ask this question fairly frequently because we know you're on the show because you have so much that you give to people on a regular basis through your work and advocacy and all of the projects that you do and, a million other hats that you wear. So we're always curious to know, was there somebody that impacted you really positively? Maybe a professor, a mentor when you were in college?
Let's see. Well, I would have to say that I had two mentors in college that really stick out in my mind from undergraduate experience. First would be Robin Street. She is retiring this year. She is the most celebrated teacher of public relations that, frankly, the sun rises and sets on, in my opinion. She was just so inspirational in the way that she worked with us as students, and her passion for public relations and the power of what we can do with our craft. So to this day, when I had the opportunity as a young professional to start taking interns from her class, I've been taking interns from that same advanced public relations class that I took. That was the reason I got my first job. And so it's so interesting that, then I began teaching alongside her in the school. So she would probably have to be just like my ultimate mentor. And she is such an advocate. She is just a huge advocate for students and for marginalized communities. And that's just everything to me. And I would say my other mentor, who I've yet to find again since I've been back at Ole Miss, and I keep meaning to, was Dr. Victoria Bush, and she was in the School of Business. And there was just something about the way she taught us advertising intro and the advanced class, where she just, especially our advanced class, she just really let us, she told us exactly how to do what we needed to do, but she was so empowering to let us do our own research, develop our own creative ideas. And she was just really inspiring, and she was a professional in the ad world, and just artist, economics teacher, and Dr. Susan Walcott, I think, would be the other one. Definitely fell in love with microeconomics and macroeconomics under her, and I think it gave me just a better understanding of how the world works, economically at least.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and is there any advice that, going back through this process, just looking at, undergrad, is there anything that you'd give your advice to your former self, I guess?
Oh, that is a really good question. Advice to my former self. I definitely would tell myself to get out of my comfort zone a little more. I think that I didn't take advantage of things like study abroad. That's one of the biggest regrets I have, because I learned, in this position, study abroad is a big part of nutrition and hospitality. They do explorations in Florence, Italy. And a lot of people I will interview, students, have gone on these amazing international adventures of service and learning. And I think that's probably one of my if I could go back and tell my former self, any opportunity you have to interact with people who don't look like you, take it. And don't let it be incidental. Make it be intentional to interact with other cultures and religions and political affiliations. And go study abroad and see how other people do things in other parts of the world that can inform better what we do here.
Sure. I think that's great advice. Absolutely. Well, we sure do appreciate you joining us today here, Sarah. And is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Where can people find at
Just
Changemakers? Which platforms?
So we're on all of the social, not all of the social platforms, because there are so many, but we are on Instagram. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Okay. And you can find us at Ole Miss SAS. And so we keep our social game up as best we can. Really trying to keep fresh content out there as much as we can. We are trying to be very, very sensitive to what is relevant in this world today. So if this is a time we need to be quiet, then we're quiet. But you can typically rely on content in our social media that is just celebrating student accomplishments, research accomplishments, celebrating parts of our program that people may not know about. But anytime we can tell a good story about a hashtag Changemaker and how they're changing the world, we definitely take those opportunities on social. And we're also online at SAS.
Okay.
Got links to all of our meetings and events, and get to know us better. When I think, honestly, we would love, we love the face-to-face too. So if students want to come by when we are reopened, and talk to any of our coordinators of advising, recruitment, and retention, I think their favorite thing to do is just to talk about students' futures. Ultimately, how do you want to make a difference in the world? And I bet you anything we have a program that can help you get there.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will be sure to post your bio and anything else you want us to post on our website. We're happy to do as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Your hard work, your advocacy, it makes a huge difference in the world and with our students. So thanks for joining us today, everyone. Feel free to take a look at our next installment of the Chit Chat. And we are also on social media. So please take a look at our Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all those other great, fabulous social things that we're on. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks.